So one of the issues I found on my power steering system that we covered before, but I wanted to provide a little more information on. This is underneath the 4106, and this shaft comes from above. It goes through a box that changes the direction and all that kind of stuff. All these U-joints are tight, no slop, but I was still having slop in my steering after I replaced the steering gear. And what a buddy of mine identified is that this shaft was oriented incorrectly, and we needed to turn it 90 degrees on the end that goes into the steering gear input. You see the sharp angle that this thing is sitting at here, and the sharp angle it's at as it enters the steering gear? I'll go ahead and explain that on the bench now, the issue that caused. All right, so we're inside the bus in the kitchen, and I've got this mock-up laying here. This end would be coming from the steering wheel, which goes through a 2-to-1 reduction in its travel. There's a miter box in there, and it's 2 revolutions of the steering wheel for 1 revolution of the input here. So there's reduction before it gets to this. Now what we're talking about is on-center steering sensitivity. So you're going down the road at a highway speed, and you're making minor inputs to the steering wheel to stay in your lane, right? So that's what we're talking about here. Now, this end is the input. Now, this end is the output into the steering gear, and you got to kind of watch the relationship here of this U-joint and the angle that it's at. The other end is not at the same angle. It's a slightly less, angle coming out of the bus. It doesn't match exactly. It's much sharper down here on this end for whatever reason. But imagine that you're going down the road on center, and this is the orientation of the U-joint. In this orientation, a certain amount of input doesn't really result in that much change, much rotation here into the steering gear input. But if you flip this 90 degrees, which is what we did, we just flipped the whole shaft 90 degrees like this, and you do that same sort of motion, you'll see for those small inputs now, we're getting much greater movement on this end of the U-joint going into the steering gear. So what that resulted in is much better responsiveness for those little inputs as you're going down the road. Now, full rotation here is going to result in a full rotation here. That just has to happen. But what we're talking about here is on center. At this angle, you're getting a lot more travel just because of the way that the U-joint works here. So I hope that clears some things up. There were a lot of naysayers out there about this, and hopefully now you all understand the method to our madness there and why that resulted in such an improvement for me in the drivability of my bus at highway speeds. Thanks for watching.